Hello Hashgraph community, welcome back to another episode of Hashout. My name is Jim Gao. Today I just finished watching the webinar hosted by Dr. Leemon Baird, The Path to Decentralization. It's part one of a three-part series that's going to be hosted by Hedera to talk about the roadmap of the Hashgraph project. And it was an hour-long seminar, and Dr. Leemon Baird packed a lot of useful information in this hour. I just jotted down a couple notes. I think the community will be very interested to hear if you have not checked out the webinar. First, Dr. Leemon Baird re-emphasized the distributed nature of the Hashgraph network, and that encompasses the distributed governance, consists of 39 governing council members, and also the release schedule of all the HBAR cryptocurrencies to ensure that maximum number of individuals will have the access of ownership to all the HBARs out there. And the release schedule we will talk about later. Then Dr. Leemon Baird talked about the exciting DApps that are currently being developed on the Hashgraph network. I was surprised to hear that many of the cryptocurrencies, many of the crypto projects such as Chainlink, they are developing their applications on top of Hedera platform. And the open access to the Hedera network will be this summer. It's reaffirmed by Dr. Baird. And many of the dApps that's currently on development, they will be launched on the same day as the open access of the mainnet. One interesting point mentioned by Dr. Baird is that the HBARs being held in Hedera Treasury, some of them will be used for proxy staking. So let's say that if you run a node and if the Hedera Council deems you as trustworthy, they might use a portion of HBARs within the treasury as proxy staking for your node. So that way, your node will have more influence in the network of Hashgraph. And it's a very interesting point because I view this as almost like a project funding mechanism, similar to venture capital funding. So if you have a project or if you are running a node, if Hedera, the governing council, deems that, if they think that, oh, this is a group of people, or if this is the project we would like to see flourish in the future, they might stake you. They might throw their weight behind you to support you, to make you flourish. Because the more weight you have in terms of staking, the more influence you will have in the overall network. It's a new mechanism, I think, of funding and supporting new entrepreneurs and new projects. Then Leemon dove into the releasing schedule of HBARs. We can view 2018, the August 2018, the creation of 50 billion HBAR tokens as year zero. And according to Hedera's schedule, all the HBARs, all the 50 billion HBARs will be released in the subsequent 15 years to the public. And with 2019, by the end of 2019, about 6.6% of the total supply will be released. And incrementally, more HBARs will be released every year. And the reason they have this release schedule is to ensure that maximum number of people all over the world will have ownership, and there will not be a concentration of power of the HBAR cryptocurrency. Then Leemon went into sharding. I was always wondering what sharding was, and basically it's just breaking up big networks into smaller networks, each with its own information, data and information. Lastly, Leemon, I think it's really important, Leemon talked about the second phase of the mainnet testing, which will start on May 13th. So next week, we're gonna start testing, second phase of testing. The difference is that this time each tester will only be able to earn up to 250 HBARs versus up to 1,000 compared to the first phase of testing. However, there's a smart contract that once you try, you will earn 100 HBARs. So each user technically should be able to get 350 HBARs during the second phase of testing. But don't be discouraged if you think that each tester can only get 350 HBARs, because once we enter open access, you can stake your HBARs or proxy stake your HBARs to other nodes, and that will allow you to earn HBARs on the network. And the earlier you stake, the bigger you stake, the more HBARs you will earn in the future. Think of this as compounded interest rate. The more money you deposit into the bank, the more interest you will earn, of course. But one important factor of compounding interest is the time horizon. The earlier you deposit into the bank, because of the compounding effect, the more you will earn. So even if you start with a very small stash, let's say 500 HBARs, if you stake it early enough, over time, you will be able to generate a lot of HBARs, which I think is really fair way to even the playing field. So even if you have a lot of money to buy a bunch of HBARs down the road, you might not have as many HBARs as the people who invested early, who staked their shares early in the process. So that's all the pointers I got. The Hedera team should release the webinar by end of day tomorrow. And once they do, I will include the link to the webinar to the description of this video. If you have a chance, I suggest you check it out. Because every time, I don't know about you, but every time I listen to Leemon Baird talk, something about his demeanor, the way that he speaks, just inspires a lot of confidence and enthusiasm in me about the prospect and the future of Hedera Hashgraph. And it's almost like a shot of adrenaline, every time I listen to Leemon Baird speak. And same thing with this webinar. Every time during even though it was very short, it was only an hour, but I was very inspired by the information that he gave. So I suggest you watch the webinar as well, and I'll see you on the next video.